Today we'll recap the drama and thriller movie A Perfect Murder. Subscribe and hit like before we begin. The film kicks off with a scene where a woman is engaged in an intimate encounter with another man. After their rendezvous, the woman returns home to her husband. Her name is Emily, and her husband is named Stephen. They're in the midst of preparing to attend a party. However, it's quite evident that Emily holds no affection for her husband. Her love for him is absent. Just like my father's presence in my life. As they step into the party venue, they're promptly welcomed by a crowd of influential individuals. Amidst the event, Emily spots the man she had been involved with named David. She subtly gestures to him, indicating her husband's presence. Seizing an opportunity during a conversation, Emily discreetly heads towards David, seemingly wanting to share a kiss. In an unexpected twist, Stephen arrives and catches them in the act. Emily is taken aback, and in a hasty attempt to mitigate the situation, she introduces David to her husband, all the while trying to mask the true nature of their interaction. Emily informed Stephen that David was a gifted painter with a background in art from a renowned institution. Intrigued, Stephen expressed his interest and requested David's contact details, possibly considering purchasing some of his artwork. The following day, Emily pays a visit to David's residence, and their intimacy resumes. However, simultaneously, Stephen encounters a serious setback as his stock investments plummets, causing substantial losses for his company. As Emily and David are in the midst of their passionate moment, an unexpected disruption occurs. Stephen's call to David. Both Emily and David are caught off guard, sensing a sudden urgency. To their surprise, Stephen expresses a desire to meet with David, raising unforeseen concerns and questions. At the bar where they meet, David accidentally drops a white envelope onto Stephen's chair, but the envelope's contents remain a mystery. Later, David takes Stephen to his shabby home, which looks old and not fit to live in. Inside, Stephen notices David's paintings and immediately criticizes them. This puzzles David. He doesn't understand why Stephen is so critical of his art and his home. Stephen's comments become even harsher when he points out that David's place lacks even basic things like chairs. Adding to the tension, Stephen finds Emily's forgotten wedding ring in David's house. This is strong evidence of her affair. It confirms Stephen's suspicions about her cheating. Stephen also admits that he's feeling jealous about Emily's affair. In response, David confesses that he genuinely loves Emily. This only makes Stephen even more furious and upset. It's revealed that David had fabricated his claim of being an art school graduate from a prestigious institution. Instead, he had honed his painting skills while serving time in prison. Furthermore, it comes to light that David had also been unfaithful to a widow in San Francisco. He's presently a fugitive, running from the law due to his criminal actions. In a shocking twist, Stephen proposes a sinister deal to David. He offers him a substantial sum of $500,000 on the condition that David murders Emily. Initially, David rejects the gruesome proposition. However, Stephen uses the threat of exposing David's true criminal history to force him into submission, knowing that David desperately wants to avoid returning to prison. Eventually, David reluctantly agrees to carry out the horrific act. Stephen goes on to reveal his elaborate plan to David. He provides all the necessary details for David to enter their home and execute the heinous deed against Emily. The reason why Stephen wants to kill his wife becomes a big question. Later, Stephen comes home and checks the envelope, finding a photo of Emily and David together. The letter inside seems to be from David. Meanwhile, Emily talks to her friend at a bar, confessing she doesn't love Stephen and wants a divorce because of her affair. Emily then realizes she left her wedding ring at David's. When she gets back, Stephen says he met David and made a deal. Emily is confused and curious about the deal's details. The next day, she calls David to ask, but he avoids answering. David changes the subject, asking Emily out to lunch. Later, he goes to Stephen's fancy house, where Stephen explains his plan to kill Emily and gives him instructions to enter. Though uncertain at first, Stephen pays David $100,000 up front, promising $400,000 more if the plan succeeds, convincing David to be a part of this dark plan. David's excitement surges upon seeing the substantial sum of money. The next day, as Emily aims to keep her lunch arrangement with David, they unexpectedly encounter Stephen on the street, who was promptly invited to join them. Following the meal, David notices Emily with her husband as he awaits her. Fueled by jealousy, he impulsively defaces Emily's painting. Unexpectedly, Emily calls, revealing her intention to confess her affair upon her return from work. She places the key in its usual spot and attempts to initiate a conversation with Stephen. However, he declines, citing his plans to play cards with a business associate. Emily retreats to her room, and Stephen covertly retrieves the key she had placed earlier, concealing it beneath a pipe to facilitate David's entry. In a chilling gesture, Stephen bids Emily farewell, as though he were anticipating her demise. As Stephen departs the house, an unknown masked individual enters, catching Emily in the midst of preparing to take a shower. The masked intruder swiftly accesses the house using the key and proceeds inside. Meanwhile, Stephen waits for the clock to strike 9. Precisely at that moment, he initiates an automated call to his residence. Hearing the persistent ringing, Emily ventures to answer the phone, only to be ambushed by the assailant. Emily does a suffocating stranglehold. Despite her desperate resistance, Emily's efforts proves futile. Refusing to surrender easily, she seizes a meat thermometer and thrusts it into the masked intruder's neck. The shocking realization of having taken a life overwhelms her, leading to her collapse. Stephen, believing Emily to be deceased, remains immersed in his card game. Upon his return home, Stephen is confronted by a gruesome scene of blood and an apparently lifeless Emily. Acting quickly, he dons gloves and transfers the key from the intruder's possession back into Emily's. Subsequently, law enforcement arrive, inquiring of Emily. Her account was that she merely answered the phone call before someone attacked her. Later, the detective directs questions towards Stephen, having noted his footprints near the scene of the crime. Stephen's shaky responses arouses suspicion in the detective's mind. When they unveil the bag, it contains someone other than David, catching Stephen off guard. He seemed genuinely surprised. Trying to divert attention, Stephen hugs Emily, seemingly casual, as they bring out the body bag. David, on the other hand, looks sad, assuming Emily had died due to the trauma. Needing a break, Emily decides to stay at her mom's place for a while. Ignoring Stephen's advice to rest, Emily reaches out to David, who was initially annoyed. He couldn't answer the call immediately, leading to mixed emotions when he later finds out Emily is alive from Stephen, who had answered the call. Afterward, David and Stephen arrange to meet discreetly. During their meeting, Stephen seems to think David was joking, suggesting David hired someone to kill Emily. He questions why David didn't do it himself. David then asks about the next step, but Stephen didn't want to share the plan. Emily feels better and returns home but faces a new problem: her key didn't fit the lock anymore. She seeks help from the receptionist for a spare key, wondering if Stephen had altered the lock. The receptionist confirms he hadn't. Entering the house, Emily surveys her surroundings when suddenly, Stephen appears, leaving her shocked. She confronts him, stating she no longer wants to live with him. Emily decides to move to her friend's place instead. During her stay, Emily and her friend discusses her marriage. Emily is quite wealthy, owning $100 million. If she died, her wealth would pass to her husband. However, considering his own wealth, she didn't initially suspect him. The following day, Emily receives news that her husband faces financial ruin due to a risky stock investment. Now, Emily's suspicion grows that her husband might be behind the plot to harm her. She decides to consult the detective handling the case and acquires the address of the masked man. In a rush, she heads to the apartment of the masked man. There, Emily is stunned to find that her key opened the apartment door. It dawns on her that the key Stephen had taken that night was from the masked man. Meanwhile, David confronts Stephen, demanding the remaining $400,000 in exchange for not revealing the audio recording of the plot to kill Emily. Feeling cornered, Stephen agrees to provide the remaining money. When Stephen and Emily have a conversation, he inquires about the presence of the killer's key in their lock. Stephen promptly presents a photograph of Emily's affair as evidence. He fabricates a narrative to manipulate Emily, alleging that David had sought money from him to end his relationship with her. Stephen adds that David was actually a criminal on the run and was only interested in exploiting Emily for her wealth. Upon hearing this, Emily feels remorseful and offers her apologies to Stephen, unaware of his manipulation. Indeed, Stephen's deception was remarkably shrewd. Later, Stephen heads to David's residence to deliver the promised $400,000, but he discovers only a note inside Emily's ring. The message directs Stephen to a specific location where they were to meet. Upon meeting David, Stephen makes his escape via a train, aiming to put considerable distance between them. However, little did David realize that Stephen's cunning nature had more surprises in store. Aware that David had secured a ticket to Canada, Stephen springs into action. Unexpectedly appearing before David, he takes matters into his own hands and ends David's life, retrieving the money in the process. As he investigates further, he stumbles upon a crucial revelation. David had sent a voice recording outlining the entire assassination scheme to Emily. Stephen feels his panic rise and hastily makes his way back home. Thankfully, Emily hadn't yet checked her mail, granting him a momentary reprieve. At last, Stephen secures the tape and carefully places it in the safe alongside the $400,000. Simultaneously, Emily becomes aware that Stephen had returned home. A profound sense of relief washes over Stephen. As he steps into the bathroom, Emily's gaze falls upon the bag that was meant for David. Seizing the moment, Emily discloses to Stephen her intention to change the house key due to her inability to locate it. Stephen's astonishment was palpable as he processes Emily's statement. In a haste to cover his tracks, Stephen retrieves the key from under the pipe, intending to replace it unnoticed. However, his actions didn't escape Emily's watchful eye. In a swift maneuver, Emily confronts Stephen. Faced with the truth, Emily initiates the playback of Stephen's incriminating voice recording. The revelation laid bare Stephen's sinister plot to end Emily's life. Fueled by fear and desperation, Emily's instinct drives her to flee, only to find her escape blocked by a determined Stephen. In a surge of anger, Stephen's frustration erupted, leading him to forcefully push Emily. But in an unexpected turn, Emily's survival instincts kicks in, prompting her to seize the opportunity. In a moment of desperation, Emily grapples with Stephen, and a sudden gunshot echoes in the room. Stephen's aggression comes to a fatal halt as he collapses, succumbing to the wound inflicted by Emily's shot. With Stephen now motionless, Emily takes possession of the gun and retrieves the incriminating tape from his safe box. As the detective arrives on the scene, Emily swiftly orchestrates her defense. She played the tape, allowing the chilling truth to resonate. With the evidence laid bare, Emily begins to recount the tumultuous struggle that had transpired between her and Stephen. The detective, assessing the situation, posed the crucial question, "What other choice did you have?" Affirming that she acted in self-defense and therefore is not guilty of causing Stephen's death. What a twisted relationship dynamic. It's absolutely crazy to think your own spouse would be willing to hire a hitman to kill you for your fortune. Would you guys have been as resourceful as Emily? I feel like I would have died because my ass is clumsy AF.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.